sleeping is pretty important, right? And I'd say 99% of people, including myself, do not sleep enough, and do not sleep enough to not feel tired at some points during the day. And it's just like not a nice feeling to feel that little bit of sleep deprivation if you had a couple of late nights, or you've had to get up early in the morning a couple of times, maybe it's for school or work or whatever, and then you've like had meetings or whatever, and it's just your days kind of seem like you go to bed at midnight, then you're getting up at 5 a.m. for an alarm, and the day just kind of seems a little bit of a slog. It kind of all merges into one because you're never really getting that proper rest. It's just not a nice feeling to have. Sleep is important. Even I probably don't get enough, and people would consider me as someone that gets quite a lot of sleep. Like, I'll go to bed at like 10, half 10 every night, and then wake up at 6:30 to go to college. That's 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep. But the thing is I'm not ever really getting 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep exactly, because if I go to bed at half 10 and I'm waking up at half 6, it takes me a while to go to sleep. Then I'll maybe wake up in the middle of the night a couple of times, need to go to the toilet or whatever. And often I don't actually end up waking up to my alarm. I'll end up waking up like half an hour or so before, at like 6. And then I'll just rest and relax before my alarm actually has to go off, and actually have to start getting up to get ready, essentially. So I'm not actually getting 8.5 hours of pure sleep. And that's basically what people need. Like, I think people say that the actual schedule of sleep is more important, and I would agree that it definitely has its place. Like, you should be going to bed and waking up at a similar time every night, like at least within a half an hour margin every single night. And that for around like 90% of the times that you go to bed and wake up every day, that's what it should be. But most people don't do that. Most people, it'll be for school, and they'll go to bed like at midnight. They'll have to wake up at 6 to get the bus, get the train or whatever. And then when it comes to the weekends, they'll end up going to bed at like 4 a.m. in the morning and waking up at like 3 p.m, which is just a weird sleep schedule to have. And I remember someone telling me that kind of sleep schedule was just really bad for like your internal systems and your body clock. Like, you would have heard of a body clock before, right? Circadian rhythm, all that sort of stuff. It's talked about quite a bit in the self-improvement space. But if your body clock is not aligned properly, you just get sick and you're just unhealthy. Your immune system is depleted, and that's not something that you really want to have if health is something that you aspire to, or just general. If you're looking for a better quality of life, then better sleep is a way to achieve that. You will be sick less, you'll be stressed less because your body is better able to deal with that stress, and you will have better mental health because, one, your stress perception is better, but two, your brain is just better functioning, and your perceived quality of life is also better. There's just a whole variety of things that come with good sleep that are positive, and I really recommend trying to get into both a good sleep schedule but also just getting the right amount of sleep. One problem with the modern day and age is that work and school starts early, and the stigma is that everyone should get up earlier if they want to be successful, and that is perfectly valid for some people, but it also isn't the same for everyone. It's like how the one set diet doesn't work for every single person on earth. That's just not how biology works. The world, there are so many different people, there are so many different cultures. Some places and some people will be better suited to going to bed at like 1 a.m. at night and waking up at like 10 a.m. in the morning, but school and work, the generic stuff, doesn't really allow them to do that, so they kind of have to suffer. Maybe they'll have some sense and go to bed at like 12, but they'll have to still wake up at 6, and they're still sleep deprived. Maybe their sleep schedule will be bad on the weekends because they want to go to bed at 1, and then they have to like catch up on their sleep, and they'll end up sleeping until like 12, 1 again. It's just not a fun thing. But the thing that the key to being successful is like getting up early is one of the reasons that people have to do that. They get up early for work, they get up early for school, they do their studying before school instead of after school. And like, for some people that is perfectly valid, you just go to bed earlier. But for some people, they're not really that productive in the mornings, and they work better to go to bed at the evenings. That's their natural kind of circadian rhythm, their natural, not that's been ingrained in by society, but their natural proper body clock. And school doesn't allow them to do that, which it's a bit unfortunate. But for most people, getting up earlier is the better option, unless your life fully allows you to embrace a more natural sleep schedule for you. But whatever you have to do, make sure that you are going to sleep and going to bed at the same time 90% of the time. That's probably the magic number, 90 to 10%. 10% you can have a late night where you go out with friends or you are doing something, but as long as you're doing it 90% of the time, it's basically fine. But if work or school doesn't really allow you to stay up later and go to your natural rhythm, then just go to bed earlier and wake up to your alarm so that you are actually getting the required amount of like 8 hours 7 hours, 9 hours sleep. If I could, my optimum sleep schedule would probably be waking up at about 5 a.m. and going to bed at 8:30, but there's too many things after school that mean that I can't do that. Like, I work and I study and I just do stuff that means that just becomes a bit unproductive, and I don't really want to do that. It just doesn't really work with me and other people around me. But one reason that people say that you should get up early is to be productive. When you get up early, before school, before work, you can get and do the thing that matters most to your purpose, and that is a perfectly valid argument. That's a perfectly valid opinion. But that also can mean that if you have the capacity to do so, then you can stay up later when everyone else is asleep, like it would be if you got up early, everyone else is still asleep. That's why it's seen as so productive, because there's no distractions, no noises or whatever. If you stay up later, you're also still getting that productivity thing, but you're just waking up later as well. But I just highly recommend finding a sleep schedule which is just as important as getting the required amount of sleep. If you don't have a good sleep schedule, then you're just basically just as bad off as if you have a good sleep schedule, but your sleep schedule is like you go to bed at 2 a.m. and you wake up at 4 a.m. Like, that's not really going to work for you in the long run at all, even if you do have a technical sleep schedule. And as I say, if you do feel that getting up later and going to bed later is your natural thing, if your school or your work doesn't allow you to do that, then just go to bed earlier and wake up at the time that you need for school or work. It will save you so much sleep deprivation. You will feel so much better. And if you can just kind of force yourself to sleep at that time, even if the first couple of nights you cannot go to bed at that time and it's like you can't sleep, you feel hot or whatever it is, it just doesn't feel normal, just force yourself into doing it, meditate, try to fall asleep, and eventually you'll get into that habit and it will work out, I promise you. But yeah, with that, I recommend subscribing for more content like this, and have a good day.